recording. There we go.
Oh, I can't promise anything.
Okay, so we're recording now. So thank you everybody for coming on the Marketing Optimist Marketing Sandwich course. We did start these off doing one a month initially, but obviously after the event we stepped them up. So we're now starting to do 2 a week, and I think I've got, following this one, I've got another one on Friday that I'm doing, which is on 10 things you can do in your marketing now to kind of help your business. And then on Monday, we are speaking to Lee Jackson, who is a presentation coach and was the president of the Speakers Association for a while. And he's going to talk to us about doing presentations online, because that's obviously a big thing now. You can't go and do them face to face. And then on Tuesday, we're speaking to Chris Allen of Black Solicitors on the kind of legal side of what's happening with all this. So I'm not sure what that's going to cover off, but it could cover off things like furlough and contracts and all sorts of elements that are hitting people left, right and centre during this crisis, lockdown, event, whatever you want to call it. So today we're speaking to Phil Story of Glow about how to look after your website. So the way I normally run this is we kind of normally just have a chat. Phil will tell us about Glow and about what it can do, and some hints and tips about looking after your website. I'll chip in. If anyone feels they want to chip in too, then that's groovy. I guess normally I'd say if you want to mute yourself while you're not speaking, but no one seems to have mad dogs or children running around, so we might be all right with that one. Not yet. If you've got, I'm not going to share any contact details, but if anyone wants to share the contact details, just bob them in the comment section so everyone can see. Most people end up sharing their LinkedIn profiles, if anything else, but feel free to share your details if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to personally share out any of your email details for obviously GDPR and all that other nonsense. So yeah, cool. So Phil, over to you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Glow? And
well, I will do. Yeah, obviously I'm conscious. I don't want to turn this into a Glow sales pitch by any means. I want this to be something that the people on the call can feel like they're coming away from it with some genuine insight that they can implement into their own website, whether it's a personal website, a blog, or a company website, from today, really. So I'm also conscious that it's quite a technical sort of field, or it can be. So I hopefully I've dumbed that down as much as possible and made it kind of as plain English as I can. I've thrown a few slides together, Richard, if that's okay, and I'll just share them, because it'll just help me help everybody really kind of go through the whole
go for it
world of looking after your website, really. So if I click share, you should all see a big glow in the middle of your screen now, hopefully. Good stuff. So I'll just chat about sort of the world of looking after your website really for a few minutes, and then give you some helpful sort of tips to implement. And then obviously if you've got any questions, just fire them my way. But I think a fair place to start is with the question really of looking after your website and maintaining it. Now, we've been doing it for years for clients across the country, but this is the question that I have been asked most over that time. And it's, well, why do I need to maintain my website? Why do I need to look after it? I've just spent, I don't know, for argument's sake, $4,000 on a new site. Why do I now need to pay to maintain it? And I always come up with the same sort of responses to that. And one of those responses is always to use a case study. So if I just share with you now one of the most recent ones, don't shout out the answer to this question, but if you can first just imagine the dodgiest website that you can think of on the internet. See what I mean by don't shout the answer out? So you've got the picture of that website in your head now, but now imagine that anyone that's trying to access your website, so potential customers, existing customers, strategic partners, they're being redirected immediately to that dodgy website. And the impression of your company that they have in a split second is just awful, obviously. And this is exactly what happened to a client that we got referred to in, I think it was back end of January this year. So They were referred to us, and we did what we call a hack investigation. So we had a bit of a look around the website to see why this was happening. And it was entirely down to the fact that they hadn't been maintaining their website. In this particular instance, from a security perspective. So obviously, just in that one moment, anybody searching for your company, trying to, they might have been referred to by a trusted partner, whoever, they come to your site and they're getting redirected off. So shocking start in terms of the impression of your company. So I always use that, a case study like that, and there's plenty of them. If we ever get asked, why do I need to maintain my website? I also thought it'd be worth just kind of sharing a statistic with you, a kind of a bamboozling sort of number. And this is a statistic that it gets released constantly by this particular company. And these guys essentially are a company that prevent attacks on websites for businesses. And this is just the number that they've prevented in the last month, which, as you can see, I'm not going to read it out, but it's a massive number. And these are the ones that they've prevented. Obviously, that doesn't count the ones that were actually successful. And this is only this one company, bearing in mind there's obviously lots and lots of companies that, whose job it is to kind of try and prevent these attacks from happening. And then a kind of a side question we get asked is, well, what are these people trying to do? Like, why are they trying to get into my website? And obviously there's a couple of types of people, hacker style people online. There's the very, very serious sort of cyber criminal type people who are there to steal your identity, nick some money off you, extortion, all that sort of stuff. But then there's also a lot of people who, imagine what you like doing as leisure time. So, I don't know, walking the dog, going for a run, going to the pub with your friends. These people like sitting there trying to hack your website. So when they get in, that's game one for them. They install something on your website that maybe makes something happen, like the case study I mentioned before. And then they get out, they're off, and they go and do it to as many websites as they can. They love doing it. So clearly there's that security element to making sure that by maintaining your website, those sorts of nasty things don't happen. And I do like to use the analogy of a car as well. Now, I can't see everybody's face on the call, but I would hope that if I ask you the question, if you went out to spend 25 grand on a new Volkswagen Golf now, you were leasing it or whatever, I would imagine that for the next 5 years of having that car, you would put fuel in it, put air in the tyres, clean it, service it, MOT it. You do all those sorts of things. And the reason that you would do all those sorts of things is because every time you want to get in the car and go somewhere, you want to make sure it's working all right and it can get you to that place that you're going to. So your website's no different. If you spend, invest a certain amount of money into a new website, it's technology at the end of the day. There's obviously the marketing angle to it as well. You want to make sure that you're getting inquiries from it, which people like Richard and Jag on this call can help you with. So you want to make sure that if you're then investing money in marketing online, that your website works well, it performs well, it's fast to load, the links work, the forms work, you look up to date from a content perspective, so your blogs, nice and up to date, all that sort of stuff. So it's just like a car in that sense. Maintain it and it will perform well for your business. I will briefly touch on Glow. So that's my business. It's a website maintenance app and focuses on nothing else other than website maintenance, basically. So it's a full kind of toolkit for looking after websites, specifically websites that are built on a system called WordPress, which you may or may not have heard of. It accounts for a large part of the internet generally. So obviously there's a lot of businesses that we can help, but Glow kind of brings everything together that currently exists in different applications in terms of being able to maintain websites and look after them. So when we come back to that question that I asked at the very start, do I really need to maintain my website? Well, yeah, of course you do. If you want your business to kind of do well online, it's your shop front at the end of the day. It's your modern day shop front. So it's extremely important to look after it, but it's a time consuming process as well. So, you're out there building your business, you go into networking meetings, you're doing business development, loads of different things, all the things that go with running your own business. So really, you don't have the time to look after it yourself. So if you just start thinking about all the little elements that build up that kind of topic of looking after your website, you start to realize actually there's quite a lot involved in looking after it. So something like Glow is a real time saver, really. When you look at that picture of adding new pages to your site, got new team members joined, so they need adding, or there's a link broken, does the form not work? And that's an absolute killer. Imagine you're spending, £500-600 a month on, I don't know, Facebook advertising, but when people land on your website, they think they're filling the form and actually it's not working. So, we want to test constantly those things are working, keep things running quickly. A myriad of things to look at, really. So obviously that's where something like Glow can come in. So I promised you some tips. Now, like I said, Glow is focused entirely around WordPress websites. There are a couple of tips here that will apply whether your website is on WordPress or not, because I'm just conscious that obviously not everybody's business will be on WordPress. But to give you an idea, it does account for about a third of the entire internet. So chances are next time you go on a website later on today, it will have been built on WordPress. So try and keep it as simple as possible, really. The first things first, you may or may not know whether your website is on WordPress or not. So you can go to our website at that address, getglow.io/for-businesses. And there's a little tool on there for you to just pop in your web address, click check, and it will tell you on the next page if your site's running WordPress or not. So that's an easy thing to start with. Like I said, it accounts for a big chunk of the internet. So the first one, which again, the marketing guys will know a lot about as well, is to make sure that you've got what we call a security certificate installed on your website. Now, these used to be kind of saved for e-commerce websites. So that's where people are buying things on your website, because obviously there's card data to process and lots of personal information. So they were obviously vital for that, but they've kind of been rolled out across every website now, really. It's kind of a given that you should have one. So if you see that little padlock in the top left corner of your web browser, that means you've got a security certificate installed. But not having one, it'll look a little bit like that. It'll tell you these days that it's not secure. And if you think about that in a traditional olden day sort of sense, it's a bit like leaving your shop at the end of the day and leaving a big sign on the front door that says doors unlocked, crack on kind of thing. Because what the lack of a security certificate means is any information that's entered into that website, so I don't know, your address, personal information, all sorts of stuff, you might enter passwords to log in. Without the certificate, all of that information is easily readable by those people that love sitting there hacking websites all day. So it's absolutely crucial these days to make sure that you've got that security certificate installed. There's loads of companies around Yorkshire that can help you get one installed. And then there's the marketing side of things as well. I think it was about, 18 months or so ago, where Google released, information on, they count it as a ranking factor now that your website's secure. Because Google's all about trust, right? If you're doing a search on Google for a particular service, they want to make sure that the results that they're delivering to you are trustworthy resources. And obviously, if they're serving up results for sites that aren't secure, not only does it not look good on your brand, it doesn't look great on Google that they're kind of, in essence, recommending those sorts of sites. So that is number one, get your site secured. Number two is a WordPress specific one. So that security certificate applies to every site. Number two is specific to WordPress. And you need to make sure essentially that you change the default login to a WordPress site. Now, I picked at random a company as far away as possible from Leeds because I didn't want to potentially embarrass anybody. So these guys are down in Cornwall. So hopefully nobody knows AW Accountants in Cornwall. But effectively, if you look at the top bit where the web address bar is, I've highlighted in blue where it says WP admin. Now, with every install of WordPress, that is what the login web address is. So that's how you log into your website to make changes to it. And every hacker on God's green earth knows that the standard login to a WordPress website is /WP admin. So if you don't change that when they're going about their fun day hacking websites, that's the first thing they'll do. They'll just check. And they're straight past that immediately if you haven't changed it. And then they're in brute force trying to log into your website and guess passwords. And there's all sorts of kit they can use to do that. So this is just one step. And it's pretty much the first step, apart from your security certificate, stop people getting to that login login page. Now, there's different things you can use within your installation of WordPress to change that to anything that you want. Make it a little bit complicated, but if it's something you remember, it's much, much harder for anybody to try and get into your site because you've changed it. So that your second tip there is change the default login. The next one is also specific to WordPress, although there are other kind of systems for building websites that you may have for your website, where you kind of add what you call plugins or extensions, sometimes they're called, and that's what they do effectively. They extend the basic functionality of the platform. So here's an example for one where you can add what they call a responsive menu plugin to your website. So if you think of these days when you're looking at websites on your phone, which we all do constantly day in, day out, the responsive menu is those little 3 lines that now have become commonplace for indicating what a menu is in your website. But out of the box, WordPress doesn't really come with that functionality. So you can add a plugin to extend the functionality. But there's loads of things. There's things to help you with social media, search engine optimization, contact forms. There's thousands of them. But what you need to make sure is that you update them when WordPress tells you that they need updating. So these plugins have been built by developers all around the world, which is one of the fantastic things about WordPress. There's so much knowledge about it because it's so widely used. There's loads of things that you can do to extend your functionality, but the better plugins, which is a lot of them, will release version updates. And a lot of the time they're releasing version updates because there's some kind of security flaw that they've noticed, so they update it. Now, if you don't update it, it's longer and longer time that's going on where that security flaw is known by hackers, so they know how to get into your site. It's just another way in for them to kind of basically overnight ruin the reputation of your business if they do the sort of thing that I explained earlier in that case study. So tip number 3, always update the plugins on your website. The next tip is WordPress specific, and then the last one kind of goes for every type of website. But yeah, number 4 is WordPress specific, and this is a little like changing the default login, but this is to change the default username. So again, with every installation of WordPress, there will be one user account set up, and that user account is always given the username of admin. So a little like the login URL, every hacker will know that the default username is admin. So make sure you set up a new user, give it a unique username that that hackers aren't going to be able to easily guess, and delete the admin account completely from your installation for your website. And there's just a little example of it. So I thought I'd use my brother's site as an example. He's not gonna mind. So there's some logins at the top for the developers, and then obviously the company themselves, but none of them say admin. So log into WordPress, have a look at the users section from the menu on the left-hand side, and if there's any that say admin, delete that account entirely. And then the last one, we've all been told this till we're blue in the face a million times for everything that you've got online, really, but it's still so common for people to not use strong passwords. You often see it actually now on websites where, as you're typing in your password, it tells you how strong it is as you add more kind of letters and numbers and characters to it. So, really use the kind of full extent of your keyboard. Get all the punctuation in there, numbers, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, everything basically, to make it as strong as possible. And again, there's tools you can add to WordPress that will tell you, they're quite fun actually, but that's me. Tell you roughly how long it would take a hacker to guess your password. It'll say, if it's a good password, it'll say something like 627,000 years or something ridiculous. So at that point, you're pretty sure they're not going to guess it. Clearly, the ones I've listed there are examples of terrible passwords, but very common. It's your name and your date of birth, or your company name, or password 123 is another belter. So clearly make sure that it's a really, really strong password. And if you've implemented those other 4 points that I made before, you're just, quite simple stuff, but you're making it a hell of a lot harder for your website to get into any bother, really. So hopefully they're of some use to you guys, and you can take them away and have a chat with your developer today, or if you look after your own site, then there's a few things that you can implement now. So thanks very much for listening. Really appreciate it. And obviously, if you guys have got any questions, then fire them my way.
Thanks for that, Phil. That was really good. I think the first thing you pulled up about having security certificates on websites is a huge one. Because I see still, I mean, you like to say it's been maybe 18 months, 2 years, but I still see loads of websites that just aren't secure, and quite big websites as well. That people just not gone to the bother of. I mean, you can get some hosts will give you a certificate for free for the first year, and others will like charge you 20, 30 quid. It's not a big expense, and it's not difficult to add on either. It's just really simple to get on with it and do it. And it's a massive ranking signal. I mean, apart from the fact that Google don't like it, and that it's an open door to hackers. If from a consumer point of view, somebody lands on your website and there's a big thing at the front of your shop front saying not secure, so instantly people are going to go, well, why is it saying it's not secure? And that's an instant turn off just from a user's point of view. So yeah,
you're right. It's a terrible thing for the impression of your brand, isn't it? I know I was on one of the talk with Jag last week, talking all about the importance of branding. And you're right there, Richard. As soon as somebody logs on, it says not secure, that immediately potential customers are going to be like, well, who are these guys? Yeah,
absolutely. I spotted that Emma, you had a question. Did you raise your hand?
No, sorry, I was trying to just I did it.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Can I ask? Sorry.
Is it renewally, or is that a one-time thing, Phil?
I didn't hear that, Emma. Say that again.
So is the certificate a one-time cost, or is it every year? Or
they're often on a licensed basis. Well, as Richard said, you can get free ones. It's like anything really. The kind of sort of different levels of them. But there's one. If you want to Google one, there's one called Let's Encrypt. That's usually a free one. And then you see different prices on different places. Really depends where you go.
My company, they've actually closed now, so just wanted to see what the implications of that were really, but I shall investigate. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Did you say that the company that give you the certificate, or that your company in particular is closed?
The company that put the website together.
Oh, okay.
All right, okay. So have you got access to that?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So if you've got access to the site, that's a good start. And then I guess you need to find out where they've got the hosting, because whoever's hosting it will be where the certificate kind of sits normally.
Yeah.
Got you. No, that's
drop
great.
us an email, Emma.
Definitely.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Right.
No problem.
Phil, can I just ask? I'm a total novice, and I'm trying to set up my website. And I've just, because obviously we're on the screen at the minute, I've just checked on my phone, and when I've typed in my web address, I do have a little black padlock, but I have no idea how, that means I've got a security certificate, how I've got that, because I haven't bought one.
Yeah, without looking at it, it does sound like you have got a certificate installed. I'm not going to overcomplicate it too much. There are situations where you can have the padlock showing, and it doesn't mean that the entire website is secured. But like I said, without actually seeing your website, it does sound like if there's a little padlock there, usually that would mean that your certificate is installed.
I'm going to go away and have a proper look when we're finished, because as I say, I'm literally this morning, I've set up a WordPress account, and I'm trying to navigate my way through it. So I will do all of that and change all my admin stuff and things.
It does sound like it does. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad that's of use for you. But yeah, no, it does sound like, if the padlock's there, it sounds like it's secured to me. Yeah.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have messaged you separately to see if we can touch base, just to
great.
Have a chat if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you.
So Phil, have you got any more tips on kind of looking after your website in terms of hosting, in terms of setup, speed and things like that? Because speed's, I mean, Jag will understand. He'll know from an SEO point of view, speed's really, really important.
Well, I was about to say, yeah, there is a, I don't know if crossover is the right word, but, you know, there's a little bit, you know, where obviously with things like speed optimization, so making sure your site runs fast, it does kind of cross over a bit into the marketing side of things, because I know that's the kind of things that yourselves and Jag's company will work on for clients for the marketing side of things on SEO. We're not a marketing agency, so we're not experts on that by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, there's tools like Google Page Speed Insights, I think it's called. So if you go to the Page Speed Insights website, you can type in your web address, whatever it is, and click analyze, and it'll tell you how fast your site is. Now, it'll return a load of the results that, you know, as a layperson running your own business, you probably won't understand what they mean, but they're the sorts of stuff that us as developers will kind of act upon to make your site faster. So I think to answer your question, Richard, definitely speed would be one thing. And I think connecting up to, you know, those kind of free tools that you can use to kind of analyze your website, really useful, because it'll tell you things like, you know, if you're adding more pages to your site and more content, which again, from a marketing perspective, you should be, if the content's of use to your audience, then, you know, on occasion you might, I don't know, put a link in wrong or whatever. So, you know, these little tools are great because they'll tell you the places on your site where something's not quite right, and it'll tell you where to fix it and stuff like that. So,
I think one of the things that I see a lot of, particularly when I'm handed a site, so it's not a site that we've developed, but it's somebody kind of comes to us and says, can you now look after this site?
Yes.
One of the things we see a lot of is that people have basically rammed in a load of plugins to do loads of different things. So you look at the site and you look at the plugins section on WordPress, and there'll be thousands of plugins. Some that are obsolete, some that they've just left in but they've turned off, and some that they've just, I don't know. I've had some sites where they've obviously gone almost like plugin shopping. So they've gone, all right, we need a plugin to do some sort of social media plugin. So we'll try one. Oh, that didn't work. We'll try another one. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, we'll try another one. It didn't work. And then when you look at the site, they've got 3 separate plugins, all trying to achieve the same thing. But nobody's thought to take out the ones that weren't working.
Well, and that's crucial as well. If you're WordPress call it activating and deactivating your plugins, and if you've deactivated one, then clearly you're not using it on the actual front end of your website for any functionality. So get rid of it completely, because again, anything that you're leaving there is a potential entry point for somebody nasty that knows what they're doing. Basically, same goes for themes. So you may or may not be aware, but you know, with WordPress, you can buy kind of pre-built sort of themes or templates, they call them, to kind of start off your website. But WordPress also ships with its own theme every year. They release a new version of it. The 2021 came out relatively recently. So again, if you're not using it, then just take it off your site. Because you know, it's only adding stuff to it that just doesn't need to be there, basically.
And it just makes it heavy as well from an SEO point of view. Just the amount of slows it down.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and particularly all those plugins. Same point there, Jag. Really, isn't it? And as you mentioned, Richard, adding loads and loads of plugins. It's only going to slow down. You think it's great because it's extended functionality, but if you've added loads, you know, too many, and you know, then it's only going to slow the performance of the site down, which is another massive factor these days, right? In terms of Google's search results, they want to be delivering results that are to websites that are super quick to load for the whole user experience. So.
Absolutely. Yes, speeds is one of the key factors, especially as they've now gone on to a mobile first index, so they're not even indexing the traditional desktop pages first. They're going through a mobile only index. So and it's absolutely key on mobiles. Even the fact that we're moving on to 4G and 5G. Speed's really key.
Yeah, you brought me on to my next point, really, which was obviously mobile, because you know, majority of our clients have the visitors to their website are 65-70% mobile now. So thoroughly go through your site on your iPhone or Samsung, whatever phone you've got. Have a look at your site on there. Does it work well? Does it do what you want it to do? Is the journey right for what you want people to actually do on your site? But you know, have a good look at it on your phone, definitely, because so many people will be accessing it on, you know, the smallest screen, basically. So definitely check it on there.
Cool. Does anyone else have any more questions they want to ask Phil or myself?
Just one really quick one, just
Sure.
back on that social media question. Is adding things like your Facebook page and your LinkedIn profile and thing, is that just a plugin? Do you just effectively buy that and stick it on, or?
There are different ways of doing that. So there are plugins that will allow you to add kind of your social media links in and around, but it might be just as easy to use some of the other functionality that's there that doesn't require a plugin. From my point of view, if you can do something in your site that doesn't need a plugin, then don't bother.
Yeah, absolutely right. The other point I just raised about plugins there, Richard, I guess, is that if you are doing it yourself and adding a plugin for whatever the functionality might then allow you to do, have a look at, because when you search for the plugins, it brings up like a grid of all the different ones available for whatever you've searched, and it'll tell you on each one whether it's been tested. Two things: whether it's been tested with the latest version of WordPress, which is important so that it's compatible, and then when it was last updated as well. There's reviews for it and all that sort of stuff, but when it was last updated is a key one. And you'll see with all the ones that are very reputable and been around for years, that last updated is usually no more than about a month. But you will see some that might say a year or 8 months or 2 years, and you proceed with caution basically with those sorts of ones, because you're kind of thinking, well, what's the developer doing if they're not bothering to update it very often? So I guess bear that in mind when you're looking at them.
I also tend to look at the star rating as well. So if something's got a big star rating and that's been generated by a lot of users, so Yoast, for example, is a classic one for SEO. Indeed. It's got 5-star rating and that's been rated by, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of users rather than just like 20. If it's got like 25 stars, then it may be great, but I do proceed with caution if it's got 5 stars but only by 20 people. That rings alarm bells for me.
Yeah, we go by reviews as well. That's a pretty important one.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, if you're not sure, ask your web developer, because you might be looking at it yourself as well. But ask them beforehand if you're not sure.
Excellent. So, has anyone got anything else they'd like to ask me or Phil?
I think so.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming on the call. The next webinar, as I say, is Friday. All the bookings and I'm adding new bookings all the time. So all the bookings are on the Marketing Optimist website if you want to go over there. But other than that, if I don't see you again, it's been nice talking to you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.